I knew the company was rotting from the head down the moment a man in loafers with no socks started calling himself a thought leader in the middle of a warehouse. Picture this, I'm standing in a chilled loading dock at 6:12 a.m., the smell of diesel and underripe bananas thick in the air, and here comes this Gen Z PowerPoint parasite talking about fuel burn deltas while a driver named Buck is screaming because his trailer's missing 600 pounds of cabbage. That's when Mr. CEO 2.0 struts in, flanked by his fresh-off-the-NBA protégé, Kyle. Kyle's the kind of guy who thinks facial hair is unprofessional but follows 15 beard oil influencers on Instagram. He didn't shake my hand, he nodded, said something about how people like me were vital in the transition phase, then immediately announced my role was being restructured. Not eliminated. Not fired. Restructured. Guy was an outdated spreadsheet instead of the only damn person who knew that Jorge from Santa Ana will only take deliveries between 3:45 and 4:15 p.m. because he picks up his grandkid from speech therapy. But no, apparently Jorge's needs were irrelevant. Kyle had an algorithm now. A sleek little scheduling AI that promised to reduce fuel usage by 4.2%. The man said that number like it was the Gettysburg Address. Kept my mouth shut. That's what 15 years in logistics teaches you. You learn when to speak and when to let the amateurs hang themselves with Ethernet cords. I nodded, thanked them for the opportunity, and turned in my badge like it was a Girl Scout sash. No tears, no drama, just dignity and a lingering scent of sarcasm. By the way, if you're enjoying this ride through corporate stupidity and sweet slow burn revenge, do me a favor. Click the subscribe button. I'm chasing my first 10,000 subscribers like Kyle's chasing his dad's approval. Seriously, 95% of y'all watch and ghost me like bad Tinder dates. Hit the damn button. It helps more than you think. Now, back to the disaster. After the meeting, Kyle handed me a laminated folder with the AI specs and said, "You'll be thrilled. It handles 17,000 decision points in real time. It's not personal, just optimization. Buddy, I am the decision points. I'm the reason your bananas haven't arrived black and liquefied. I'm the reason that glove shipment didn't end up in Saskatchewan." He didn't want my input, just my resignation. So I gave it to him with a smile and a thumb drive labeled transition notes. Inside, 100 pages of logistical gibberish interspersed with fake supplier contacts, memes from the early 2000s, a detailed analysis of why the coffee machine always smells like burnt plastic. But I knew Kyle wouldn't look at it. People like him don't read, they skim. And they delegate. Usually to the same intern who just learned what logistics means last week from a TikTok video featuring a girl in a hard hat lip-syncing to Dua Lipa. Before I left, I sent one email from my personal Gmail to myself. The subject line, Transition Delay Protocol Plan A. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a plan. Not yet. But it was the match I'd strike if this clown show tried to operate my supply chain without knowing that Hank in Omaha won't sign invoices unless you compliment his dog. And Kyle, he didn't ask a single question. Just watched me walk out like he was deleting a file off his desktop. Let him. The Real Logistics storm was coming. His little AI? It didn't know about Roy's gout flare-ups or that the whole Des Moines warehouse staff takes smoke breaks together at 10:47 sharp. But I did. They sat me in conference room C, the one with the flickering light and the air vent that wheezes like it has asthma. HR was already there, wearing her pastel cardigan armor and that rehearsed, Botox-smooth empathy face. Al came in, sipping a protein shake like this was a post-Pilates brunch and not the surgical amputation of 15 years of experience. "First off," he said, with that voice that makes you feel like you're being mansplained to by a TED Talk, "this isn't personal." "Sure, Kyle. That's why you brought a printed graph showing how my removal would cut human error and reduce fuel usage by 4.2%. Not 4%. Not 5%. 4.2%. As if the decimal made it gospel. As if shaving a few pennies off diesel mattered more than the fact that Steve from Topeka only unloads pallets if you bring him a sausage biscuit from the gas station on Route 7. I nodded slowly, like I was trying to translate his buzzwords into human sounds. Efficient, I said. Just make sure the system has some context on Mr. Maguire in Fresno. Kyle blinked. HR lady scribbled something, probably misspelled Fresno. No one asked who Maguire was. That's fine. Maguire doesn't like being talked about anyway. He also doesn't sign shipment invoices unless they arrive with a handwritten thank you card and a bottle of Diet Dr. Pepper. I slid the thumb drive across the table. Transition notes, I said. Kyle took it like it was radioactive. Didn't even plug it in, just pocketed it like a good little tech collecting digital trophies. If he ever opens it, here's what he'll find, a spreadsheet titled Q4 Routing Priorities where every cell just says, Ask Marlene. A tab labeled Personnel Codes that's actually a list of my favorite sandwich orders. A color-coded map that leads to a Taco Bell in Michigan shaped like a pirate ship. And embedded in cell C12, a picture of me flipping off the camera, wearing a tiara made of packing tape. They thanked me for my service. I thanked them for their PowerPoint. Asked if I had any last words. I said, good luck with Mondays. Kyle smiled like I was being cheeky. HR looked concerned, but not enough to stop the inevitable. They handed me a manila envelope with my severance package like it was a consolation prize at a rigged carnival. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't tell them that they just lobotomized the brain of their own supply chain. I just walked out, past the receptionist who mouthed, WTF, as I passed, and kept going, straight into the sunlight and the scent of diesel exhaust and old coffee. My world. The real world. Not their buttoned-up spreadsheet utopia where drivers are just units and every route is a polygon. I sat in my car for 5 full minutes. Not because I was broken, but because I needed to think. Strategize. I opened my phone and pulled up my supplier contact list. All 29 of them. I stared at the names, Rico, Trina, Hassan, Billy Two Belts, and felt that slow, steady burn in my chest turn into something sharp and metallic. They turned me into a number. A variable. An inefficiency to be optimized. Fine. Let's see how their algorithm handles a storm of human chaos, custom-built, handcrafted, lovingly assembled over a decade and a half. Because the real error they just introduced wasn't human. It was underestimating the one person who actually knew how the damn machine worked. I didn't sleep that first night. Not from sadness, hell no, from the buzz. The hum of gears turning, pieces clicking, decades of muscle memory recalibrating for war. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, thinking about routing grids and emotional leverage and the exact order I'd built my kingdom of chaos whisperers. At 6:01 a.m., I made my first move. It wasn't loud. No grand speeches. No scorched earth farewell posts on LinkedIn with sunset emojis and grateful for the journey hashtags. No. Just one text, copy-pasted with slight variations for each of the 29 names in my contact list, heads up. Change is coming. Might want to hold off a few days. I sent it with the casual tone of someone asking if they'd seen the game last night, calm, light. But every recipient knew me well enough to read between the lines. Replies started rolling in within minutes. Rico from Denver, if you're out, I'm out. Trina from Georgia, they cut you? These fools just unlatched their own trailer. Billy Two Belts, who hasn't used punctuation since 2012, just sent, no Marley no peaches. Hassan didn't even reply by text. He called me. Said, tell me where you land. I'll reroute by Tuesday. I had to pause to collect myself. Not because I was touched, Though I'll admit hearing Rico call me the duct tape holding this country's mango supply together did stir something in my cold logistics heart, but because I realized just how much leverage they'd handed me. Raw. Untraceable. Unautomatable leverage. These weren't just suppliers. They were loyalists. So I opened a new Google document, gave it a simple title, Alternative Offers. And I started writing company names that had whispered job offers over conference snacks. Regional competitors who'd begged me to jump ship back when I was still too loyal, or too naive, to consider it. That one Canadian outfit who sent me a literal fruit basket every Christmas with a note that said, "If you ever want to be queen, we'll build you a throne." I listed them all. Then I added a second column, suppliers most likely to flip if I flipped. Then a third, estimated revenue impact if those suppliers pulled out of my old company's network. By lunchtime, I had numbers. Not rough guesses. Intel. If even a third of them followed me to another company, it would crater the old place's quarterly performance like a sinkhole under a Walmart. I wasn't being petty. I was being precise. That afternoon, I hit up a few recruiter friends on LinkedIn, the ones with weird job titles like Talent Integrator and People Alchemist, who've been thirst-liking my posts for years. Sent a few feelers. Dropped a couple names. One replied in 6 minutes flat, "Oh, if you're on the market, I have 6 VPs who will want to call." Sending a calendar link. I didn't click it. Not yet. First I needed to make one more quiet move. I drafted an email to one of the only honest COOs I ever met, at a rival company no less. We'd shared a bottle of bourbon once after a conference in Houston and spent 3 hours trash-talking consultants. I wrote 3 sentences, thinking of making a change. Got 29 suppliers on speed dial and a very broken system that just told me I'm obsolete. You in? I hovered over send, sipped my cold coffee, then clicked it. My phone buzzed before I could even set the mug down. Subject, let's talk today. The game was on, and unlike their shiny little algorithm, I had the one asset that can't be programmed, loyalty. By Friday, scent of something sour had crept into Kyle's airbrushed little utopia, and it wasn't just the rotting plums in Dock 7. It started around 9:14 a.m. A refrigerated truck carrying 800 pounds of antibiotic-free chicken breasts was supposed to arrive at the Springfield facility by 8 o'clock sharp. Hospitals were waiting. Contracts had clauses. But the driver, according to the system's dashboard, was still idling somewhere off I-7, 60 miles in the wrong direction. I was sitting in my favorite diner, sipping burnt coffee and watching my phone light up with supplier group chats. One message in particular stood out, "Trina, Elm Mao." I told them I didn't see no schedule update. Must have gone to spam smirking face. A confused supplier is the logistics equivalent of a slow clap, public, deliberate, scripted. They weren't being sloppy. They were signaling. I flicked open my tablet, pulled up the schedule Trina definitely received, and stared at the pathetic little grid. The new AI had tried to optimize her Monday delivery to Friday, then rerouted the Friday to Sunday. No warning. No human confirmation. Just cold math. The algorithm didn't know Trina's Friday foreman was at a parole hearing. Didn't know she schedules drivers based on church choir rotation. No. I was the one who negotiated her new refrigeration contract when her old one went belly up in 17. Back at HQ, the Slack thread exploded with confused at Kyle tags and timestamps flying like shrapnel. Kyle, he was not in crisis mode. He was in learning mode. "This is just the system calibrating," he told the team, all confident and caffeinated. "First week hiccups are expected. It's ingesting legacy anomalies." Legacy anomalies. I nearly choked on my toast. That's what I'd become. That's what Rico's stubbornness, Trina's choir rotation, and Billy Tubal's peanut allergy were to him. Not real people with histories and nuance, just inconvenient data points screwing with his beautiful bar graphs. Meanwhile, a second shipment missed its dock window by 53 minutes. That might not sound like much, unless you're trying to load out before the afternoon union off. Which they were. Which they missed. I watched it unfold like reruns of a show I used to star in. Shipment confirmations were late. Unloading crews got reassigned. Drivers started calling the wrong dispatchers asking why their paperwork still had my name on it. Because of course it did. Kyle had updated the algorithm. Not the people. And while all this chaos percolated like a pot left too long on the burner, I sat in my booth biting into an overcooked hash brown. Buzzing beside me like a counter near a meltdown, Rico messaged, "Want to bet they call by Monday?" Trina sent a gif of a dumpster fire with the caption, "Optimized my ass." The bitterness in me should have been stronger. Should have made me want to scream, "I told you so," into the void. But I didn't feel rage. I felt something warmer. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Just the clean, bittersweet satisfaction of plan unfolding, without me lifting a finger. Kyle thought he'd replaced me with software. But I hadn't disappeared. I'd become invisible. And that, in logistics, is the most powerful place to be. Monday hit like a jackknife on black ice. The first sign was a text from Hassan at 6:38 a.m., got 3 drivers parked outside a shuttered facility in Modesto. "You moved that warehouse last year, right?" "Right. 18 months ago. Relocated operations because the old facility had a leaky roof and an unregistered raccoon squatter named Gerald. The new system, Kyle's shiny algorithm, was still sending trucks to Gerald's place. Then came the gloves. 8 pallets of nitro medical gloves, critical supplies for a hospital chain in Arizona, ended up at a distribution node in Reno. The only problem? That node was decommissioned during the pandemic. It's now a vape juice warehouse that doubles as an illegal crypto mining farm. By 9 a.m., 27 trucks were stuck in logistical limbo. Half of them idling in lots that didn't exist on current permits, the other half circling buildings with release signs flapping in the wind. Dispatchers were fielding angry calls from drivers while warehouse teams were trying to reconcile packing slips with ghosts. Back at HQ, internal Slack channels looked like a war zone, long threads full of timestamps and question marks, people pinging Kyle like he was the Oracle of Delhi. One thread ended abruptly with, "I'm going to the bathroom. Do not follow me." That was from Jenna, a junior scheduler who had been shadowing me before the restructuring. Smart girl. Unfortunately, the algorithm didn't account for emotional collapse. Someone tried to call one of the suppliers directly. That supplier, a small but vital link in the PPE chain, responded with, "Sorry, we're not authorized to speak to anyone but Marlene." That one got screenshotted. Circulated. Mouthed in disbelief. Wait, didn't we fire her? The mood in the building shifted from confident disruption to terrified improvisation. Someone in compliance flagged 3 active contracts for breach potential. Another tried to open a shared folder titled Legacy Contact Maps and found it empty. That file had lived on my desktop. Password protected. Labeled DND, do not delete. Too late. An email thread surfaced, forwarded up the chain, showing that the AI had routed a delivery from Kansas City to Philadelphia through a shuttered way station, creating a 6-hour delay and a violation of DOT regulations. That shipment included a temperature-sensitive insulin batch. When the president's assistant couldn't explain the delivery gap, CEO's reply was just 5 words, "Where the hell is Marlene?" He didn't say it in anger. He said it like a priest realizing someone had swapped his holy water for vodka. And me? I was at the botanical gardens, watching koi fish, drinking a thermos of coffee with too much cinnamon. Phone off. Heart rate low. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't have to keep anything running. Didn't have to juggle misrouted trucks or lie to suppliers or cover for the incompetence of someone who thinks Slack threads count as leadership. I just existed. Free. Quiet. Peaceful. The unraveling had begun. Not a bang. Not a whistle blow. But a slow, methodical untangling of the cords I used to keep looped around my fingers like a puppeteer. It wasn't revenge. It was relief. By Monday afternoon, the executive wing sounded like a haunted boiler room. Phones ringing. Shoes squeaking. Voices getting sharper with every syllable, the kind of chaos no noise-canceling headset could contain. And somewhere in the middle of it all, a guy in a $2,000 blazer was realizing his company's skeleton crew didn't know the first thing about bones. At 1:12 p.m., the first big red light flared, a furious voicemail from the purchasing director of a hospital conglomerate in the Midwest, one of our top 3 clients. Message came in hot, your delivery window closed 3 hours ago. That was a level 3 shipment. If we don't have it by COB, our legal team will interpret this as breach. In normal times, a level 3 was handled by me personally. I knew how to juggle temperature thresholds, clearance codes, and 3-letter acronyms that meant someone's life might literally depend on box 2417 not showing up half frozen. Now, box was sitting in a loading bay in St. Louis with the wrong barcodes, the wrong paperwork, and no assigned driver. By 1:45, it wasn't just hospitals calling. It was grocers, freight partners, state agencies. Everyone wanted to know why their perishable inventory was missing, their invoices were misdated, their drivers missed. One CEO from a produce chain said he was sending a rep with a GoPro to document the mess. We want to film the breach, he said. The president of the company, Mr. Jameson, finally came storming out of his glass-walled corner office. His tie was crooked. His face had that waxy sheen executives get when the numbers are no longer theoretical. He barked something at Kyle, who looked like he was trying to physically crawl into his MacBook. Kyle offered charts. Charts. Heat maps and delta reports and a 4.2% projected fuel savings curve that looked real pretty on the screen, while 800 gallons of milk curdled somewhere in Kentucky. That's when Jameson turned to his assistant Cheryl, a competent woman who ran the place like a submarine, expecting answers. How many trucks do we have misrouted right now? He snapped. She blinked. I don't have access to the routing logic. Okay, then where's the glove shipment? I think it was sent to Reno. Or maybe Fresno. No, wait. Someone said Reno doesn't exist anymore. Jameson stared at her like someone just unplugged his brain. Who the hell did we just fire? He asked. It wasn't rhetorical. It wasn't even angry. It was scared because for the first time he realized that firing me hadn't been a line item on a restructure memo. It was a detonation, the kind where the dust takes a few days to settle and then suddenly a thing's where it used to be. And Cheryl, she looked down at her tablet like it might offer salvation. Instead it displayed an error message: failed to fetch supplier data, contact not found. Meanwhile, in a small cafe 4 blocks away, I stirred honey into a cup of overpriced green tea and opened my laptop. One email blinked at the top of my inbox. Subject: Can we talk? From Cheryl. I didn't open it. Instead, I clicked on a different tab, a spreadsheet of alternative job offers, 12 of them now, and one in particular. It included a signing bonus big enough to make me not laugh. When the president finally figured out that his fuel savings came with a side of system collapse, I smiled. Sometimes the most devastating revenge is watching someone else realize they set fire to their own oxygen. They dragged the algorithm vendor into the boardroom by Tuesday morning like a suspect in a police lineup. 3 consultants in matching Patagonia vests, each armed with a MacBook, and the fragile confidence of men who hadn't field tested a damn thing. Their faces said we ran the numbers, but their eyes said we did not sign up for this. Many angry phone calls. Kyle sat at the end of the table pale and sweating through his tailor-fit disrupt-the-norm dress shirt. The only person who looked worse was the president, aged 5 fiscal years in 2 days and now had the demeanor of a man being personally haunted by spreadsheets. So Jameson said, pinching the bridge of his nose. What happened? One of the vendor reps launched into a monologue about data dependencies and human-verified legacy context protocols, which translated into English meant, "We thought you gave us a full handoff, you didn't, now everything's on fire." Kyle tried to save face, insisting the transition notes I left had everything the algorithm needed. The vendor asked to see them. Oh, that was rich. They pulled up the thumb drive labeled transition notes, projected it onto the conference room screen. A hush fell over the table. Tab 1, a list of trucker CB handles, all fake. One of them was just Donkey Kong. Tab 2, a supplier matrix where every contact was listed as Jeff with a different emoji. 3, a full routing calendar for Q4, which when zoomed in revealed it was actually just a repeating pattern of Danny DeVito memes, one for each weekday. Monday DeVito was waving, Friday DeVito looked disappointed. One of the vendor guys cleared his throat. This appears to be corrupted. Kyle leaned in, squinting at the screen. Wait, what's this? Cell C23. Jameson, read it aloud. It says, try asking the algorithm where Hank buys his hoagies. Silence. Then a single consultant murmured, we're going to need to run a forensic pass on this. Forensic pass on a spreadsheet containing 47 instances of the phrase Kyle is a sentient haircut. I nearly spilled my tea when I saw the email summary. Meanwhile, Kyle was unraveling. He started offering things: overtime bonuses, extra comp days, even handwritten thank you notes if someone would just please manually override the route optimizer's mistaken assumption that Denver was closer to Boise than Salt Lake. He told his junior staff they were empowered to make agile corrections. One of them tried. She rerouted a shipment of frozen vaccines straight into a Nevada truck stop and cried for 40 minutes in the bathroom afterward. I watched it all unfold via the grapevine. Employees who still had Slack login, dispatchers who forwarded panicked voice memos, vendors screenshotting Kyle's emails and demming them to me with commentary like dudes trying to reboot the Titanic with duct tape. I didn't feel triumphant, I didn't feel vengeful, I felt curious, detached, like a biologist watching a frog realize it's in boiling water, or an old mechanic listening to a kid explain how a carburetor is just like an app. Right, I'd warned them in my own way. I'd left clues. Half the suppliers told them directly, this won't work without her. But Kyle had traded my messy human expertise for a clean column of numbers and a 4.2% promise. Now the promise was broken, the numbers were wrong, and the system it was still trying to contact a warehouse that turned into a dog groomer 6 months ago. I closed my laptop, looked out the cafe window. City bus drove by with an ad that read, smart tech, smarter people. I almost laughed because the smartest person in their building had already left it. It was Wednesday when the dam finally cracked. I was walking my usual path through the Arboretum, second coffee in hand, sneakers crunching gravel, watching squirrels argue over a cracker like it was legal tender, when my phone buzzed. Not a text, a call. I didn't recognize the number. Something in my gut told me, this isn't social. I let it ring twice, 3 times, picked up. Yeah, the voice on the other end was gravel wrapped in exhaustion. Marlene, it's Rico. I stopped walking. He wasn't calling to gossip. Rico doesn't waste phone minutes on pleasantries. The man once negotiated a 10-year contract with 3 sentences and a handshake. If he was calling now, it meant the walls were actually caving in. We'd been holding back, he said. Told my guys to sit tight. Trina did the same. Hassan too. We figured they'd come crawling. I raised an eyebrow. And they called this morning begging us to resume full service. I told them, can't move unless you greenlight. The words hit like a freight train made of vindication and cold steel. I didn't smile, I didn't gloat, I just said, thanks for holding the line, Rico. Before he could say anything else, another call buzzed. In this one I did recognize Cheryl, the president's assistant, loyal as ever, but her name popping up now meant someone had officially run out of rope. I clicked over. Hi Cheryl. Her voice was brittle but polished. Marlene, thank you for picking up. I know things ended abruptly. Don't worry, I cut in. I'm not mad. Oh good, look, I'll be brief. Jameson asked if you'd be willing to consult temporarily, just to stabilize things. I took a breath and stared out. Over the pond, ducks drifting, clouds doing their slow ballet across the sky. I can't. A pause. May I ask why? Because I signed an NDA. Another pause. This one heavy NDA. Yeah, I said, calm, and even started with a new firm, director of supplier relations. Their system's different. I didn't need to elaborate. Cheryl understood. She exhaled softly. So the competitors got you. They didn't get me, I said, voice cooling to glass. They asked for me. Silence again, kind that buzzes in your ear when the air feels too still. Then in a quieter voice, they've lost 5 clients since Monday, 2 more are threatening to walk. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. That sounds about right. Can I tell him anything? You can tell him this, I said. Next time he wants to replace a backbone with a buzzword, maybe he should check where the blood flow comes from first. She didn't argue, she just said understood. We hung up. I stood there another few minutes watching a squirrel bury a nut with the intensity of a man hiding gold bars in the yard. My phone buzzed again, this time a welcome email from my new company's HR portal. Subject line, welcome aboard Marlene. I tapped it open, my reflection faint in the screen. A new chapter, a new team, a new empire, one built on trust, not templates. I turned the phone over, screen down, and finally let myself smile. This wasn't revenge, this was ascent. The press release dropped Thursday at 8:02 a.m. and it hit the industry like a crowbar to the kneecap. We're pleased to announce our new Director of Supplier Relations, Marlene Hayes, whose proven expertise in logistics leadership will elevate our supply chain operations to new strategic heights. There it was, my name in bold right underneath the company logo of their biggest competitor, the one with newer trucks, deeper pockets, and a reputation for poaching talent with the same casual ease a hawk snatches a squirrel off a fence post. The statement included a short quote from me, polished corporate safe, but every supplier who read it knew what I was really saying. I picked my new kingdom and my people are coming with me. By noon, 6 of my old suppliers had already emailed my new office asking for onboarding packets. Another 3 said they were reviewing terms and even forwarded an old contract with my former employer, circled the termination clause in red and wrote, "We're out, where do we sign?" It was like watching dominoes fall, only each domino carried 6 figures of revenue and a hand note that said, "Marley knows where the bodies are buried." Back at my former workplace, the unraveling was no longer subtle. One vendor pulled out mid-shipment, forcing Kyle to personally call a driver he didn't know, a language he didn't speak, using an app he didn't understand. Someone from accounting reportedly asked if FedEx could just do all of it. Another department had resorted to sending faxes. Jameson, the president, called an emergency board meeting. They tried to spin the departures as seasonal churn, but no one was buying it, not after the press started sniffing around asking why half the vendors from their hospital supply wing had switched teams in 48 hours. And then came the moment that would stick with them like mildew in the break room fridge. It happened in the glass conference room, same one where they cut me loose, same flickering light, same squeaky vent. Jameson stood at the head of the table, red-faced and wrecked, holding the original termination form with my name on it, copy that Kyle had smugly initialed under cost reduction. Jameson didn't yell, didn't throw anything, he just slapped the paper down on the polished oak and muttered low and broken, "All this to save on fuel." That line would echo through the building for months. The golden boy with his proprietary AI was reassigned to emerging projects. HR quietly updated the org chart. Someone floated the idea of reaching out to me with an apology, but it was too late. Didn't torch the bridge, I just watched them tear up the planks thinking they'd float without me. Now I sit in a corner office with floor-ceiling windows and a team that actually listens when I talk. My calendar's full, my inbox is controlled, and the only algorithm I trust is the one I built myself, with names not numbers, with relationships not rules. They asked why I didn't fight to stay. I tell them the truth, I didn't want revenge, I just wanted peace. But peace tastes better when it's served cold and garnished with the fall of every fool who thought I was replaceable. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.